Hi friends, it's Grace and welcome back to the start of another video. Today we are going to be talking about the state of my series and just doing a 2024 series update for the end of quarter one. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, because I don't really do this stuff quarterly, but I just thought that this was a good time of year to do it so that I can kind of gauge where I'm at, especially because if I don't end up doing another one of these until like the end of the year, then I can say that it was about 9 months and kind of just gauge like how I'm doing. So the last time I made one of these videos was actually close to the end of June of last year. So we're currently about 9 months out from that one as well. And it's just a way for me to gauge like how many series I've finished in that time, like how many on average am I finishing per month, how many series am I opening up. But I decided to simplify things just a little bit for this video, and instead of having all of these different categories, the only two things that I'm going to talk about are the series that I have finished since that last video or caught up on. Those are going to be in the same category. And then the other category is just the series that I have either started or have ongoing, period. Like not since that video, but just in general, how many series am I in the middle of? So I wrote all of this down in my handy dandy little notebook, and before we actually get into it, I can tell you that I have finished 12 series since the last video, or potentially 11. There is one series that I finished like only a couple weeks before that video went out, and so I'm thinking I probably talked about it already, but I'm gonna mention it again anyway. And then we have 29 open series, potentially, more like 28. I'll explain that when we get there. So here's what we're gonna do. I was thinking about holding up the entirety of every finished series as I talk about them, but I don't want to like completely upend my bookshelves and just contribute to like complete chaos. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to hold up like the final book because that seems more productive. But we're gonna start with the series that I have finished in the last 9 months. So the least recent on this list that I finished in June of last year, which is the one that could overlap with my previous series video, is A Chorus of Dragons by Jen Lyons, because I did binge like the 4th and 5th books in this series like last June. So this is just to make sure I have all of my bases covered and make sure that we're talking about all of the series. But yeah, this is the least recent that I finished. Then number 11, which I caught up on but is not actually in itself finished, is Blade of Dream by Daniel Abraham. So from what I know, the trilogy conclusion to this is supposed to come out like later this year. I believe that's what I heard. So that is what we will be going with, and like for now I'm just considering these in the same category as basically like I've read all that there is available to read. Then also I believe last July I finished the Great Leveler trilogy, or alternatively known as the trilogy of standalones that are in the middle of the two First Law trilogies with Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. And this was either in July or August, I honestly don't remember, but I finished the Rainwild Chronicles by Robin Hobb with Blood of Dragons. Then next up, number 8 on this list, I finished the Rook and Rose trilogy in August with the release of Labyrinth's Heart. And funnily enough, I've actually never read this copy because I read an ARC copy of it and I had this pre-ordered, but I am looking forward to the day that I reread this trilogy because I do love it. Next up at number 7, I finished a reread of the Long Price Quartet, and I believe this was in like October, maybe November that we finished this. Just as good the second time. I adore this. 10 out of 10 recommend. Then next up, right near the end of 2023, at the start of December, I want to say, we finished Fitz and the Fool by Robin Hobb with Assassin's Fate, and of course this was also the conclusion to the Realm of the Elderlings, which is sad and heartbreaking, but also one of these days I'll be ready to reread the entire thing. Next up, I caught up on the Legends and Latte series by Travis Baldree, and I say caught up just because I'm not 100% sure whether he has said if he's releasing more in this world or not, but suffice to say, I've now read the prequel as well as reading Legends and Lattes, so I'm either finished or I'm caught up. Next up, we caught up with the Gentleman Bastard sequence by Scott Lynch by reading The Republic of Thieves, which, you know, I'm hoping desperately and dearly that there's a fourth book coming somewhere in our near future. The news that he is like getting a little bit closer with those novellas is definitely heartening, so I would love to see more books come out in this series. Next up, I finished the Letters of Enchantment duology, which began with Divine Rivals and concluded with Ruthless Vows. And even though I didn't love Ruthless Vows as much as I loved Divine Rivals, I still really enjoyed both of these books, and I just love a duology for being so quick and so enjoyable, but like not a ton of pressure of a long series. Then next up, I finished a reread of the Winter Night trilogy by reading The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. And on this reread, I actually consumed this series via audiobook, which is a really cool experience. It was like a new experience, and now that I've had both, I just think it's fascinating. Like, I loved both of them, and I will probably, if I ever reread this again, go back to the physical, but I really enjoyed those audiobooks. And if you're somebody who worries about this, they would be great for pronunciation as well. Then finally, the most recent series that I have completed, and one of my absolute favorites now, is the Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. So I know that technically you can consider the first Law World as one series, like if you wanted to. I personally do still consider them to be like three trilogies, and so that's why I have The Great Leveler and The Age of Madness on here separately. I doubt anybody would really argue about that, but regardless, just to clarify, I did just finish The Age of Madness in March, and it was so good. Okay, so next up we have the series that I have started and that are ongoing. We actually have an honorable mention to start with because I have listed this in order of like most recent to least recent of the time that I last read a book in this series. And the reason we have an honorable mention is because I'm actually about to start Gardens of the Moon. Like, the bookmark is in it and everything. I looked at the maps last night, but I didn't actually start it last night. I'm gonna start it today. So when I made the list, Malazan wasn't on it, but it's gonna be, like, it's about to be. So just consider this as like an open series where I have 10 more books. It's gonna be an open series for a long time, but I am really like looking forward to getting into it. Okay, we're gonna go through this list like fairly quickly, and I'm not gonna hold up every book just because there are so many, and some of them I actually don't own. But to start with, the most recent series that I started is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, which is a trilogy, so that means that I have 2 more books required to finish that one. I do have the second book, but the third one I believe is only out in hardcover right now, so I need to wait for that to come out in paperback if I want to buy it and have it match. But I could potentially still read it like from the library or something, so we'll see what happens there. The second most recent series is The Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, which is of course a reread for me in anticipation of Wind and Truth. So down here I have 3 more books to complete the series, which like technically is true, but the whole point is that there's going to be 4 more books to complete the series. So, you know, take that as you will. By the time I'm finished with Rhythm of War, we're going to be close to not being caught up anymore, which is very exciting. The third most recent is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which I have 3 more books to get to in that one. I've read 2. Then next up we have The Riverfall Chronicles by Jacqueline Hagan, and so that is The Wickwire Watch, is the first book in that series. And I currently have down that there are 2 more books to get through, but I do believe that this is planned to be like a 7-book series or something like that, so it's actually fairly long, but it's just that there are only 3 currently published. Number 5 is Emily Wilde by Heather Fawcett, and so once again, only 2 currently published in this one, so I only have 1 more book to read to complete this, and that's actually the same with the next 2 on this list, because the next up is The Regency Fairy Tales by Olivia Atwater, and so I've read 2 of those, and I actually only have Long Shadow left. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether she's going to publish more in this series or not, so I'm not sure whether that will technically complete it or just get me caught up. I would not complain if she did write more, so I'm kind of actually hoping for that. And then we have the Finley Donovan series by Elle Cosimano. At least semi-recently, the 4th book was published. I'm not sure exactly when, but I have it on hold from the library. There's a bit of a wait for the audiobook. It said it was supposed to be like 19 weeks or something, but whenever that one actually comes through, I will be listening to it and we'll see how it goes. Like, I've really enjoyed all 3, but the first one is still my favorite, and I have heard that the 4th one wraps up some of those storylines, so it could potentially be a good stopping point even if more books are published. We'll just see how I feel about that one. Next up, we have The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, which I have read The Grace of Kings, and I have 3 more books in order to finish that series, but I am just waiting until Ben and his books arrive here because the final 2 books will come with him. I haven't read Wall of Storms yet because I don't really want to read it and then have to not know or like wait for the 3rd and 4th books to come. That's basically it. Next up is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, in which I have 2 more volumes of that graphic novel to read. And then also The Burning Kingdoms by Tasha Sori. So I've only read The Jasmine Throne, and oh, I forget what the name of the 3rd book is. It hasn't actually been published yet, but seeing as it's coming in 2024, that trilogy will be completed fairly soon, and so I've just put down that there's 2 more books to complete to catch up because I don't really see myself reading The Oleander Sword before the series is completed. I'll probably just read it all. Then next up we have the Tide Child trilogy by R.J. Barker. So I've read The Bone Ships and I have 2 more books to go in that one. Same with the Licanius trilogy by James Islington. I have read The Shadow of What Was Lost and I have 2 more books to go. I would ideally like to read that trilogy before I read The Will of the Many, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. Then we have the Indian Lake trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones. Originally, I was waiting for Don't Fear the Reaper to come out in paperback so that I could buy it and have it match my copy of My Heart is a Chainsaw. And now that the 3rd book is coming out, I'm not entirely sure what my plan is because I would also want to wait for the paperback of that. So I may end up just waiting a while and then trying to read the whole trilogy once I actually own them all in paperback. Then we have The Radiant Emperor by Shelley Parker Chan, which is a completed duology with He Who Drowned the World coming out last year, and honestly I don't really know why I haven't bought that book yet. I liked She Who Became the Sun, so I do just have 1 more book left to complete that. And number 15 on this list is kind of embarrassing because it's The Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin. Yeah, I only have 1 book left. I only have to read The Stone Sky, and then I would be done that series. And I really feel like I should do it soon because I don't know why that's still on this list. Kind of the same with number 16, The City Watch, because me and Ben were reading the Terry Pratchett together for a while, but then we kind of just wanted like a bit of a break to buddy read other things instead of having that be our book like every month. But we only have Snuff left to go, so maybe at some point soon I'll make it my goal to read Snuff. And then we start to get into series that I have a little bit more left of. We have The Earth-Sea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. I've only read 1 book of that, so that means that I have 4 more to go. And then also The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. I have 6 books to read in that series, but like, to be fair, some of them are novellas and they fit in between the main novels, but still, when you count up everything, it does equal out to 6 books. Then we have The Empire of the Wolf by Richard Swan, which begins with The Justice of Kings. And I really enjoyed The Justice of Kings, so now that that trilogy is completed, I really need to buy the 2nd book and see if I like it. I have 2 more left in that series. Then we have The Singing Hills Cycle by Niveau, of which I have read 2. And so I have down here that there are 3 more, but I believe that there's actually only 2 more, and then the 5th one is forthcoming, but relatively soon. Next up after that is The Aurelian Cycle by Rosaria Munda, and this one is a trilogy that I have read 1 of, which is Fireborn, and then I would have to read 2 more books, although I would consider rereading Fireborn before continuing in that series. We'll see. Then I also have Mistborn Era 2 by Brandon Sanderson, which I have 3 more books of. Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan, which I also have 3 more books of. The Band by Nicholas Eames, which I have read one of, and then I technically have one more of, even though they're more of like companion novels than direct sequels. I haven't entirely decided whether I will ever read. Is it Bloody Rose is the second book in that? But we'll see. And then we have Between Earth and Sky by Rebecca Roanhorse, which is the trilogy that starts with Black Sun, so I would have 2 more books there. Then the 26th series on the list is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahiran, so I would have 2 more there because I have read the first book, but that's another one where I would probably want to reread Serpent and Dove before I continued. And then one that I would definitely need to reread, number 27, is the Alex Stern series by Leigh Bardugo, because I read Ninth House when it came out in like 2019, so that was like 5 years ago. So that is a series where I want to read it and I want to continue it, but I'm just not entirely sure what my plans are because I actually don't even own Ninth House. So I would consider buying it and buying Hellbent and then reading both of them, but I'm just not sure when that's going to happen. And then the 2 series that I have on here that I'm unsure of for various like reasons, or for 2 different reasons I should say, not various, is number 28 is The Hexologists by Josiah Bancroft. I read the first book called The Hexologists and I liked it, but I didn't love it. So this is one where I think that I'm gonna wait for the second book to come out and see what people's reviews of it are like, and then kind of decide whether I want to continue or not. And then finally, we have The Counselor by E.J. Beaton. And this is the one that I'm unsure about because I'm honestly unsure whether it's ever going to get a sequel. At one point, there was like a series continuation talked about on some of the author's social media, but I don't know if a sequel is ever actually going to come out for that book. I really enjoyed The Counselor, so like if a sequel ever did come out, I would absolutely be reading that, but that's why I'm not sure, because I don't know if there's gonna be one. So those are like, okay, yes, I have a lot more series open than series that I've finished, but I think that in the last like 9 months, finishing 12 series is actually quite good. And a lot of these series that I have open are series that I do have genuine plans to finish out like that final book fairly soon. Like they're not just languishing there forever. Some of the less recent ones are languishing a little bit, but that's a smaller number that I'm kind of okay with. Like I should probably do something about it, but at the same time, I don't think it's an overwhelming number, especially given, like I said, how many of these I actually only just have 1 more book to read, or like a series like Percy Jackson, where like I can sit down and read one of those in the in an afternoon. So it's kind of just to the whims of my mood. I could continue in it any time. It's not a massive commitment. So I think I'm pretty happy with this list. Let me know what you think, whether you can like bump any of these series up or down my priority list for when I'm going to continue them or finish them. Please do let me know what you think. Also, let me know what you think of the series that I have finished, because I know there are some pretty popular ones and I would love to hear you guys gush about them too, or to hear your thoughts. So yeah, that is going to be it for this little series update. Oh, one small thing just to drop in at the end is that I did make a series to start in 2024 video for the start of this year, and the series that I put on there were The Age of Madness, Malazan, Stormlight Archive, and oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but A River Enchanted and a Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross, that duology. And all I can say is I am starting or have started or have even finished 3 out of the 4 of them. So I'm doing really well with that, and I'm pretty proud of it. So yeah, like I said, that is actually going to be it for this one this time. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you would like to see more from me, and as always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!